Okay, this is awesome. This is really, all the flavors just taste so great together. The basil is really, really fresh. They can really. Hi, it's Dot from dot2trot.com, and my cooking fest for the day is almost over. I have one more thing that I'm making, other than the pulled pork that's in the oven right now. I'm going to make a pesto dish, and unlike other pestos, it is going to be primarily basil or basil based, like a traditional pesto. However, I'm not using pine nuts. And the reason why I'm not using pine nuts is that they're a little expensive. It has nothing to do necessarily with the carb count or anything like that. It's just for a small bag of pine nuts, you're looking at $10, $12, $13 in some cases, certainly where I live at. So instead, I'm going with a good old standby, which is just as tasty and it makes a great pesto, is with walnuts. So, further ado, I'm also making this all in my food processor, which is probably one of the most important kitchen items I use, and I use it on a regular basis. I absolutely love this thing. It is a bit of a beast and a monster that I got a few years ago, but it really is a workhorse in my kitchen. I'm using 5 cups of basil. You can see there's a lot of basil here. I wish I could have my own little herb garden, but I don't have much of a yard. I do things out of pots, and this year I just didn't get around to it, but normally I grow lots of basil in pots. As you can see, I use quite a bit, and the nice thing about it, it's going to make quite a bit of pesto with this 5 cups of basil, but you can freeze pesto, and it keeps for several months in the freezer. So it's really a wonderful little thing to have on hand. You can use it for salad dressings. You could use it on top of any type of meat you're making. So there's a lot of versatility to using pesto. It's a great flavor. So I use 5 cups of basil. I'm using a full cup of walnuts. I'll put that on top. I'm also going to use 4 cloves of garlic. I have some smashed up garlic here from another dish I was making earlier today, and I don't want it to go to waste, so I'm using it for the pesto. So that's about 4.5 cloves of garlic, roughly. And then I'm using a cup of, I normally would use grated Parmesan. Didn't have that, so I just used my shredded Parmesan that I have. And then I'm going to put in just a 1/4 teaspoon of pink Himalaya sea salt, or salt, I should say. It's not sea salt. And then you can always add more for taste. So I'm going to add that right now. I'm not adding in the olive oil just yet. So what you do is, with a food processor, if you're not familiar with it, there's this little device right here. You use it to push food in, but while you're processing, you can also take this out. Food doesn't come spitting out at you, thankfully, and that's where I'll add the olive oil at slowly as I go. But right now, we want this plugged in, and I'm going to plug it in to use the old extension cord to use it on my workstation. And I'm just going to pulse and start chopping it up. I really want to grate everything together. I'm going to take this off. Ooh, see, if you can see how finely grated it is. I'm going to use my spoon here and just start scraping down the sides a little bit. Not much, which is good. So I'm just going to scrape this down, and I'm going to start adding in my olive oil. Now I'm adding it in slowly, the olive oil in slowly, simply because if you add in too much, you can just start having your pesto a little bit too liquidy. If that's what you like, then great, then go for it. I tend to like mine a little thicker. So while I'm using 2/3 of a cup of olive oil, I may not use it all. And also I have another ingredient that I toss in, which is butter. Ooh. I am a low carber after all. So I'm going to just start pulsing this. I'm going to start a steady stream and pulsing. See it starting to add some liquid to it. So I've done that. Now I'm going to add my butter. And I still may add a little bit more of the olive oil too. I'm just adding the butter straight through here, straight through the chute. I'm adding about 3 tablespoons of butter. Again, it just adds a little bit more fat content to my pesto. That's good mixed up. I'm going to go ahead and scrape the sides Oh, it smells so good. It's really, it has a nice nutty scent to it, but also that the basil is coming on really strong, and the garlic doesn't overwhelm. There's just enough garlic in here, or you can get a whiff of that as well. So I'm gonna just go ahead and do that. I'm being good. I'm not licking my fingers because I really want to. I do love my pesto. I'm gonna add a little bit more olive oil to it because it is still a little thicker than I would like. So I'm just gonna go ahead and add this. I may be adding in the full cup. Yeah, I think I am. Or the full 2/3. Okay, let's see where we're at. Oh, look at that. Look at that. It's beautiful. You can see the olive oil in here glistening. Oh, it smells so good. This is actually perfect for me. But again, if you want it a little more liquid to it, so to speak, you can certainly add more olive oil to it. I don't think it really needs it for myself, and I'm going to take a taste. I'm just going to go ahead. I'm not going to lick the spoon because I'm going to need the spoon to basically scoop this out and put it into my containers. It's really, really good. I'm going to add a little bit more salt to it. So I'm going to add, just sprinkle this around and I'll give it another twirl. I'm not going to add another one because you can always over salt. And again, just put it on pulse to get it mixed around. I'm going to go ahead and scrape the sides again. Not strangely enough, I learned how to make pesto from a friend of my husband who used to be a chef, and he left cooking for the wonderful creative world of IT. Who knew? So anyway, I'm going to go ahead and take another taste. I know you might think I'm double dipping, but it's just me and my husband, so hey, that's okay. Okay, this is awesome. This is really, all the flavors just taste so great together. The basil is really, really fresh. You can really taste that. And then the walnut, it's a very subtle, nutty flavor to it. Again, the walnut doesn't overwhelm it. That's why to me, it just makes such a great option to pine nuts because they're really expensive. So what I'm going to do to preserve this is I'm going to take a little bit and take a scoop out, a couple of scoops, maybe about a 1/4 cup, put it in the fridge for use at different times. And then what I'm going to do is I've got some ice trays. I'm going to scoop the remaining of it into ice trays, put a cellophane on top, and just put it in the freezer for a couple hours to freeze. And then what you do, you pop them out of the cubes. They come out real easily because of all the fat that's already in here, so they're not going to stick to the cube tray. And you put it in a freezer-proof bag, and then you just mark the date that you're putting them in, and they last for months. So you just take out what you need, and each, my ice cube trays pretty much are a tablespoon. So it's like a serving size already measured out for me. So it's a great way to save it in the freezer. It lasts for months, and the color stays bright. If you need to, you just add a little bit of olive oil. You can nuke them in your microwave if you have that, or just let them set out and get to room temperature. You just add a little bit of olive oil and maybe a little bit of Parmesan cheese to it, but it comes out tasting great months after you've already made it. So that's my pesto recipe, my basil walnut pesto recipe. Go ahead and give it a try, and until next time, I'll see ya